It's time to put your health in your own hands. Get ready to learn from today's top health and wellness innovators and thought leaders on Optimal Health Radio. Now, here's your host.
Hi, this is Tammy Patzer, and I'm excited to welcome back Vicki Kindy. Vicky is an intuitive conduit for divine energy. I want to tell you a little bit about Vicky's background because it really is not only interesting, but I think there's a message in today's talk about connection and disconnection and the divine energy. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Vicky. Vicky grew up in the desert of Southern California. From an early age, she experienced the world as nonsensical and confusing, feeling lost and disconnected. This dissatisfaction led her to seek meaning and connection. Efficient and capable, she developed a successful and profitable property management company. She also explored religious life through church attendance. But these efforts did not bring the expected joy and satisfaction. Religion, professional work, and family life did not provide the spiritual connection she desired. So think about that. You might be someone who has tried everything. You've looked at religion. You've lost yourself in your job. You have a family, but there's something missing. Something about your soul, your spirit, you're feeling disconnected and maybe a little bit lost. So, Vicky, I think that resonates with a lot of people in the world today because think about it. We live in this world that we're literally on a tight rope between virtual reality and reality, the world we live in. And then, of course, we have our spiritual self that it's in there someplace. You know, we have our mind, our body, our spirit, and then we're trying to connect with others and, of course, with the divine or with the God of our understanding. So tell me a little bit about your journey and what you have found that helped you to become connected.
There was always this sense that there was more to life than I was aware of and that most people were aware of. And I remember in my 30s, this message came into my head. It was just like, the whole world is wrong. Everybody's wrong, including you. And I thought, oh, well, that's an interesting statement. And it felt so true. And I went, yeah, but what can I do with this? I can't prove it or disprove it or anything. It's like, so it was just something I lived with, this message of, the world's wrong. We're missing the point somehow. And, so in my 40s, my early 40s, I finally went, okay, if there is somebody in the world that knows the path or a teacher or somebody, I need them to come because I'm not getting there myself. And I waited years because that was my early 40s. And it wasn't until I was 61 that I heard about Mahendra Trivedi, Guruji. So there was a long time of confusion in my life and knowing that there was more. I didn't know exactly what it was. And when I was younger, I got into I got married once and divorced, and then I married again, and I was with my partner. And, I was what Guruji calls, he talked to somebody and said, you were a husband torturer. Well, I was a husband torturer too, because I was absolutely trying to connect with this human being, the way that we, soulmates and, all this stuff and, the romantic and, you've got to be really deeply connected somehow. And so I was after this person constantly trying to connect, and just, I created all kinds of trauma drama for myself, and I'm disturbing him all the time because I'm trying to do this big, connection. And it wasn't until I was 61 and started getting blessings from Guruji that it finally, and I was doing Chintan, it dawned on me that the reason it didn't work is I was trying to connect with a human being and not divine, which is what I was really looking for all my life. It's this divine connection. And there were times in my life when I knew I was seeking a God or God. And other times I was so confused, I wasn't even sure what it was I was after. I just knew I was in this place of, this world does not make sense to me. It is horribly upsetting, and I don't know which way to go. And I've always been a person that I looked around and I noticed, a lot of people seem to have a lot of direction, and they knew what they were supposed to be busy with. And, they were, motivated, and they had, aspirations and goals, and I was just kind of like stuck going, whatever line they got in that gave them a passion to move these things, I think I missed it. Somehow I didn't get that. And I just never quite could figure out why this was such a problem for me. And I would look around and people would talk to me and say, well, just try stuff, just go do stuff. And it always felt like, well, yeah, I can keep busy for a while, but where is that getting me? It's not what I want. I want. And so when I started getting blessings from Guruji, it just all came clear. This was my path. This is what I had always been seeking, a divine connection. And Guruji is my guru, my teacher, my guide. And it's a way for me to connect with divine in the highest level that I possibly can in this lifetime. That's my goal. That's my path. That's what I've been searching for without always even know that's what I was searching for. And for me, it just became this space of absolute calm, peacefulness, and extreme joy. There was no more confusion. It was just, I'm here. This is what I've been seeking.
That's a really beautiful description, and it's very interesting because you mentioned that how you were a husband torturer.
I thought that was a really good thing.
As you said it, and I was waiting, of course, with bated breath, going, I wonder what that means. But now I understand, because you were saying I was torturing this human being because I was trying to connect with that person at this higher spiritual level. And of course, you didn't really know, number one, how to do that. And again, that really wasn't what you were seeking. You were seeking the connection to the Creator or to the God of your understanding. So that's kind of a funny thing. Now, you mentioned the word Chintan, and I know that some people have never heard of that word before. So can you just give me a little definition of what that means?
Oh, Chintan is like when you lay down at night, you just review your life, what you've done, what choices you've made, and where those choices have sent you, and the paths that you've gone on. And as you do it, then you finally get to the point where you look at your day. You go, okay, what did I accomplish in this day? What was important? What did I get done? So it's just a kind of a life review that you do on a nightly basis to be aware of where you're at in your life and what you're doing. and how your choices affect your outcomes, and sometimes the outcomes are really good, and sometimes they send you off into really strange paths that lead you to not such good things. And you might have to reverse yourself and go the other direction,
Okay,
like fast.
So a chintan it's a Hindu word, or Sanskrit actually word, meaning like life review or thinking about something, and chintan is about reviewing your life. Like you said, it's an overview of the whole thing, and then you actually come down to the daily basis of what are you acting as a good person should, on a daily basis. I think that's really interesting. And then the other thing that you said related to the seeking, and you said that you actually just met Guruji Mahendra Trivedi, and that was in 2015. So really, it's only been a few years that you have you found what you were looking for, and that was someone who could open that window or that door for you to make that connection. And you talk about when you're connected as being very peaceful and calm. So is that a sign to you that you are connected to the divine? How do you know? What is that knowing?
For me, it's just this, it really is just this quietness and peacefulness and acceptance, that I don't use my brain very much anymore to try to sort things out and figure things out and make plans. I'm just kind of listening, and when something comes to me, or when Guruji says, this is what you need to do, because I'm following him, I will do what he tells me to do. I might not quite understand it if I try to sort it out in my brain, if any of those thoughts for me appear, my mantra is, I'm seeking divine at the highest, and I'm following Guruji. The brain doesn't have to understand it. Sorry, brain, but get out of the way. You don't need to understand where exactly it is you're going and how you're going to get there. And you don't have to make plans and organize and, do all this stuff. At least that's the way I feel at this point. I just need to do whatever is my next step. And it always becomes clear what my next step is.
Yes, I can see that. That's really interesting because, and you had talked about that earlier when you were talking about how everybody else seemed to have this path, and you were like, you felt like you weren't in the right line or something.
That whole passion that people have, and they know, oh, I'm supposed to be this. This is what I should do in life, and this is my path. And I didn't get that. And it wasn't until I was 61 that it became clear what my path was.
Well, I think that's interesting because I think a lot of that, I don't think it's that people are so clear on what their path is. I think it's that they're trying to figure it out, so they're just doing something. They're doing of it. They're like I know me, if I look at my life and I said, well, I thought I needed to go to college in order to make more money. So I went to college. I got a master's degree. Yes, I did make more money after I got the master's degree than when I had the bachelor's degree. And I made more money when I had the bachelor's degree than when I didn't. But then there was a point when it was like, oh, well, I need to have a PhD. And in my brain, even though I was already 57 years old, I wasn't thinking, oh, well, gee, what are you going to do with that PhD? Is that really going to give you anything more than what you really have? And what I discovered when I actually went and started working on my PhD, and it became clear after I came home for winter break I went to Oregon, where I'm originally from, and I started working on my PhD in mass communications. And during that time, it was me and 10 men, young guys, and nobody was older than 30, and me, and I was 57. So I was like mom. But what I learned was, by the time I got the PhD, I'd already be in my 60s. And the only thing a PhD would really help me with is if I wanted to be a tenured professor somewhere, and it wouldn't be, most likely it would not be in Florida, and it would not be in Oregon, and I'd have to go somewhere else to do this. And it was like, I don't want to do that. And what I learned was it was unfinished business from when I was young, 18 years old, when I had the dream of going to college and getting this degree, and who knows what it would have been, but my life didn't happen like that. And so that 3-month period was almost a form of Chintan, I think, but it took 90 days or longer, because I had to go and do it and reflect on it and say, what is the purpose of this? Because all I was really doing was trying to hang on to a childhood dream, and it wasn't what the adult in me, needed at all. And now I can see that very clearly, that it was just unfinished business that I was trying to, make up for something, because my life didn't, turn out the way I thought it was going to, with, marriages and children and all of the different things and work that we think are our path and our life purpose. So I wanted to ask you about consciousness a little bit, because I've interviewed a lot of people, and to tell you the truth, in my adventures, I never thought, oh, I want to have a higher consciousness so that I can become closer to the divine. I just didn't have those thoughts. So in your adventures, was that a conscious decision when you were having all of these feelings of confusion and feeling lost and disconnected? Did you know that that disconnection was that spiritual disconnection, or did you discover that once you had that inkling that there has to be somebody who can help me answer these questions? What was that? What happened for you to really come to that realization that it was that spiritual connection that you were lacking, and not that human connection that you thought you wanted with your husband or your partner?
No, I was not totally aware that, like I said, there was a lot of confusion. Sometimes I was aware that I was seeking divine, and other times in my life I wasn't even clear enough to know that's what it was I was after. So there were moments when I was really clear, there's more to this life. I know there's a divine presence. There's some sort of energy. Somehow there's more. And that's when I would ask, that's when, my early 40s, that I asked, the universe is like, okay, if there is somebody out there that can help me, please, I would love to meet them, so because I felt at that point, I'd been, confused my whole life, and had been under different types of stresses through my life, and and underlying all that was just this sense of, I'm not doing it right. I'm not getting it. I'm missing why I'm here. Somehow I've missed the point, and it felt like to me that so had everybody else and missed the point. We were all running around doing all this whatever, and we all weren't hitting any kind of target that was worthwhile. It just felt, and so by the time I was in my early 40s, I had pretty much become really quiet in my life, and I didn't hang out with people. And at that point, I called it too much trauma drama. I just couldn't deal with people's trauma drama and all the, because most of the time they were creating their own messes, which I was doing too, and I was really aware that I was creating my own messes. But I could do enough what I called trauma drama in my life myself, and I didn't need to add all these other peoples around me. So I have a husband, and I have 4 kids, and I have one friend, and she has 4 kids. And that's pretty much the interaction I have with the world, and has been for over 20 years. Because the energy of people I'm really aware of people's energy. And for me, it was really hard is really hard for me to be around people that are saying one thing, but that's not the feeling I get from them. Like they're talking like everything's okay and they're really happy, and I feel sadness and deep, anger or something. And so it was this discordant thing all the time with people, and that was too much trauma drama for me. And it put me in a room with a lot of people, and I would be, oh my gosh, this is just too hard. Too much energy, not in a good way. Too much energy for me anyway. The excitement, I didn't get happy with it or excited about it. I got, just quiet and traumatized and like, get me out of here. It's just too much. And Guruji, when I'm around him and in his space, he's one of the few humans that I have ever met there's no discordance from him. Not ever. The first time I was in his presence, it was like so peaceful and so quiet. And so, whatever he was, it all matched. There was nothing, a different thing than what was him, which was the first person I had ever met that was that way. And so being around him for me is just so peaceful.
I can understand that because you're absolutely right. Humans have a tendency to, especially now, even with social media, for example, people are living in this virtual pretend world, and they interact with people and they'll say things that, for example, nobody would ever say to anyone in person ever. And they'll do all kinds of really odd things, or they'll make believe that their life is beautiful and wonderful, when in fact, it's not as great as that. And that energy that you're talking about, you're right, because a lot of people are not getting it. Back when you talked about 20 some years ago, when you first had that realization that nobody was getting it, that they were just as disconnected as you, but they appeared to be having something because they were doing things that made it appear like they had something going on. And I think I've been guilty of that. When you just try so hard because you don't know what else to do, when the truth is sometimes you can just be, and then you're just, like you said, your brain doesn't have to work so hard because you're not trying to figure anything out.
Yep.
You're accepting, and you have this peace. Now you've actually, obviously you're intuitive, you're empathic, you are a conduit for life force energy, and you've done been scientifically validated in terms of this energy that you're a conduit for this life force creator energy. So do you work with people, or will you be working with people to help them experience life force energy transmissions?
Isn't that an interesting question?
Yes.
I'm in the waiting place for that answer. I'm doing the next steps where Guruji says, do the marketing, do this, do that, and I've done that. But I've never actually, besides doing the scientific studies, which, you do the blessing at that point, I've never actually used this with anybody because it hasn't become clear to me where and when and how I'm supposed to. And so I'm like, okay, it will become clear at some point, and then I will do exactly what I'm supposed to do. And I'm okay with that. It will become clear.
Yeah, I think it will. And it's really interesting because, for example, there could be somebody listening to this conversation, and they might say, hey, I would like to talk to Vicky about this and learn more about it. And then, of course, you can talk to them about it and see what happens. Or, of course, you can always direct them to Guruji and the Trivedi effect, whichever you deem that you would like to do. So I just wanted to remind everyone that you can actually go take a look at the science, the programs, and get all kinds of information about Vicky and the science that she's participated in at forceoflifeenergy.com. That's forceoflifeenergy.com, and you can check out the information. And she's got a blog there, and there's the media, and the science is all there. And then, of course, you can learn more about Vicky, because she does have a very different understanding of the divine connection than a lot of people. And I think even in that, Vicky, there's great value in just listening to you talk about having the divine connection. And so because of the way it makes you feel and the way that that calmness that you exude with that connection, because a lot of people are just frenetic, they're all just hyper energy, and you do have a definite calm energy. And I think people need to understand that exists, and that there is someone who can help them connect to that life force energy. And it could be Guruji Trivedi. And then, of course, you have been gifted with that also, where you could help them connect to that life force energy. So that's a pretty interesting thing. So again, you can go check out Vicky's website at forceoflifeenergy.com, and there's a telephone number there, and of course an email, so you can reach out. Before I let you go, Vicky, is there anything else that you'd like to say?
I would highly, highly, highly recommend that you go to TrivediEffect.com and read about Guruji and his work and all of his science. Because to me, it's an amazing time. Here on the planet at this time is such a great gift from the divine. We've been given this human that is so enlightened and has such major gifts that the divine has bestowed on this being. And it's incredible. And I feel so fortunate to be living at this time and to actually have met this person and to be around him and to be able to receive blessings from him. So I would just highly recommend going to the Trivedi Effect and just immerse yourself in this amazing gift that divine has given us in the world. And it's nothing else in the world can do what Guruji can.
That's beautiful. So thank you so much, Vicki. I really enjoyed talking with you today.
Thank you, Tammy. I enjoyed being on your show.
Everyone, this is Tammy Patzer with Vicki Kindy. Go make it a beautiful day.
You've been listening to today's top health and wellness innovators and thought leaders on Optimal Health Radio. To get more solid health and wellness information, visit OptimalHealthRadio.com.